Welcome to the Design Imposter Podcast, the show where we explore the enigmatic world of imposter syndrome through the lens of design, community, and empowerment. I'm Monique Jenkins.
And I'm Jessica Valis. We're your co-hosts of the show and the founders of the Creative Circle Collective, a design agency that strengthens community links for nonprofits and corporate businesses by creating impactful branding and websites. Join us as we explore the relationship between design, community, and creativity. Welcome to Design Imposter.
Hey everyone, it's Monique here with the Design Imposter Podcast, and on this episode, we're going to be talking to Amber Fields. Amber is the founder of Black UX Labs, and their organization stands at the intersection of technology, leadership, and diversity. Their mission is to drive innovation by promoting inclusivity and preparing the next generation of tech leaders into shaping a more diverse and dynamic future in tech. She's such an amazing force. I can't wait for you guys to listen to this episode. Let's go ahead and jump in. So tell us a little bit about your background. So you're saying your parents are both entrepreneurs and you didn't really have, this idea in your head that you had to do a specific thing. How did that manifest throughout your career?
Oh, wow. So I am a history buff fanatic by nature. So I, at 9 years old, was reading books that I probably didn't have any business reading, but as far as the depth of the storytelling, I was like I was enamored with stories of Black girl thriving. And I didn't even know it. I didn't even know that that's what I was picking up. I'm just picking up a book. I see a little girl, she got pigtails. And then the story happens to be about she climbs this mountain and she gets to the top of the mountain and she puts her flag up there and, happily ever after. So fast forward, I stayed very close to social studies. I stayed very close to history class, just like paying attention. And I didn't realize at the time, but storytelling, I was enamored with storytelling. Like, how do you do that? And then got to college and panicking like other college students, especially those who you're on a scholarship. So you better get them grades because ain't no extra money waiting on you if this don't work out.
Yep.
So I got to college and I'll never forget, my parents set me in the kitchen and my mom was just like, I was panicking about what major, like where should I go? Poli sci, because I thought I was going to be a lawyer, y'all. Couldn't tell me different. I thought I was going to be a lawyer because I was ready to debate. Ain't nobody debate with me.
Oh, I'm going to challenge you one day. We're going to do a whole podcast episode just us debating because I love it. My husband is like, I want to get past this. I want to just move on to something else. I don't have time for this, Monique. Don't nobody want to debate you. And I'd be like, bro, it's my love language.
Exactly. So I thought I wanted to go into poli-sci. I went to visit a law school while still in undergrad, and I just was like, I crumbled on the inside. I mean, I think my little light just dimmed just by visiting the school. And no shade to the school, I won't name it, but it was enough for me to be like, So my parents sat me down in the kitchen. They were like, what do you want to do? And my mom said, I just want you to do whatever it is that makes you happy and where you'll get the best grades. Like, what is something that you'll do and you'll actually like doing it? And I was like, Mom, I like history. She was like, then go pursue history. And I'm like, okay. And it wasn't really specific to Pan-African studies, even though I did get a minor in Pan-African studies. It was like the history of the world without the lens of Western European colonization. I just wanted to know, what is the real story? Like, what happened and how did we get here? And so I pursued history, got my degree in history. And of course, after that, everybody's like, well, what are you going to do? I mean, you're not going to find a job. Obviously, you're going to become a teacher, right? And I was like, baby, first of all, y'all don't know me like that. Like I might giggle and kiki with you, but I'm a hustler, okay? So it's going to be whatever I want it to be. And again, I got a creative mother, an entrepreneur who I'm watching do the hustle with the grit, come up with the solutions, create the product, execute on that product, do some market research. I'm watching her do all this at the same token. So I then realized I really had a knack for advertising. So I took that history degree and I went to the job and said, hey, I want to work for your advertising agency. And somebody said, okay. And I was like,
well, that was easy.
Okay.
Pursued her passion, got what she wanted.
Asking, you shall receive. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have an opportunity to connect with people who helped me get there. But yes, ultimately I was like, I want to try. And that led me to storytelling through marketing. So I was able to take that history degree and translate those skill sets of understanding how to conduct market research, how to conduct research into implementing marketing campaigns. I got to the point though that I was like, I don't want to just do the same thing over and over and over, which is what I felt like I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gone to my CEO and president at the time. The company was small enough I've never been afraid to
Yep.
talk to people and talk to those in leadership. My parents probably instilled that in me because they were leaders. So why would I be scared to talk to leaders when I see a leader, but you can't be what you can't see. So I'm real about that. So anyway, I went to my VP or the president and the CEO was like, y'all got to give me something. Like this little girl is drunk. Like I'm just bored out of my mind. And basically I was told like, girl, you doing too much. And I was like, ooh, okay.
Fine then.
All right. So I left I left my hometown to pursue a supervisor job in advertising in another state. And at the time it was radical, probably still radical, because they were essentially like people just hopped around the city, to different advertising agencies. And I was like, nah, y'all doing the same thing. In my mind, I'm not saying that they were, but in my mind, like this is all the same thing. And so I went and moved into a different capacity where it allowed me to focus on being more inclusive. And I was so happy because it was just a part of our everyday work. It wasn't like the subset or corner office or one person back there who handles all of inclusion and stuff. The operation, the culture was all about inclusion. So I was like, oh, this is a win. So I took that storytelling, my passion for storytelling and for Pan-African studies and being a Black woman, just like, I want to see more women like me on TV. What I got to do to help get that there?
Yep.
So they brought me in to pretty much facilitate marketing campaigns for Black and brown consumers that were driving Nissans and Infinitis. And at the time, I thought that was it, maybe. I thought that was maybe my ceiling. Like, okay, I'll just climb this ladder. Not my ceiling, but like, oh, this is my path. I'll just climb this ladder and see where this goes. And then somebody pulled me to the side and was like, psst. And I was like, you know what I mean? They was like, have you ever considered market research? Like, you have a knack for trying to uncover the why often. And those insights could be really impactful. Now, I just would like to highlight quickly that somebody saw it in me before I saw it in myself.
Yep.
Okay. So that is like one moment in my career where not that I needed the validation, but if you don't know that it exists, you know what I mean? So somebody tapped me on the shoulder, said, you'd be great at this, and told me there was an opportunity, and I took that opportunity. So I moved to LA and I started working for a market research firm. That market research firm allowed me to learn from men and women who really did this work, like put these focus groups together, hosted these, put together large Qualtrics survey. I mean, all the, where I was like, whoa, okay, I'm thinking we're doing a little something, but I haven't gone this far in depth into it. And what I found out about myself was that I was really good at uncovering the nuances. So what happens is we would be a part of a research study, and there would be moments where I'm seeing my bosses, no shade to them, but like miss opportunities for follow-up questions, for deeper insights. And I'm like, but because I'm young, I'm like I'm young, I'm still young, but I was younger then. and, and I found that there were moments where I would like text my boss in the middle of a focus group, like, hey, you forgot to ask about, or maybe you should ask about such and such. And he's like, and the more I became a trusted partner in that experience, they began to let me explore some more opportunities with different clientele. That introduced me to Uber. That introduced me to Domino's, where I was bringing in inclusive research practices. And I didn't even actually at the time realize that that's what I was doing, because I had a background in uncovering inclusive nuances. And so fast forward, moved to New York, took an opportunity in New York where I had the opportunity to work with Google and Amazon and Zillow and few other companies. And I transitioned at that time into user experience research so I could be a little bit more tactful with my methodologies. At that point, I was a full-blown ethnographer. So I'm used to traveling. I'm used to sitting one-on-one with people.
I was gonna say, I've not had that experience in my career, but it always seems so interesting.
LA was where they birthed that for me, for sure. Was at
You're like a little journalist.
I sure was. And the amount of people that I met, I couldn't help but grow as a person, because you're sitting in people's homes. You've got to be like neutral as hell, obviously, and respect. You have to understand people's cultures before you even walk in their door. So doing your research as a researcher to make sure you're not going in the door disrespecting somebody was huge, which again, small nuances that people miss, thinking like everybody's I'm the default, so everybody acts like me. And no, that's not the case. But that experience allowed me to become a better storyteller. And so when I got to UX research in New York, my job was to tell the story of users on how they would use a specific product. And it was around VR and AR. And I love that. But that was when I started to feel like, I'm a little bored. Like, I love this, but y'all a little too, like, it's like I'm here to provide the insights, but I don't get to be, I'm of the people, but I don't get to really be with the people because I'm with y'all, but y'all like certain things that I'm not really into, like Dungeons and Dragons. And I gotta talk the language.
You're putting stereotypes here, programmers.
But I gotta speak the language in order to provide provide the insights that you need. So I gotta understand you. But really, while I'm so busy trying to understand the users and my stakeholders, no one's taking the time to understand me. So now I'm feeling isolated. Now I'm feeling like I'm going after something that's not going after me. I'm trying to prove myself in a space where I really feel like, what? Prove what at this point? Like, do the job, of course, but what am I proving? Okay, well, now I'm tired. So I come back to Kentucky, where I'm from, and COVID hits. And I'm at a place in my life where I'm on sabbatical, mentally and emotionally. And I land a job with Turner Sports. Shout out to Turner Sports. I love my experience at Turner Sports. But I land a job with Turner Sports as a UX researcher. And I think that was like the first time I was really evaluating, what does it mean for me to be in UX? And how far can I stretch and expand this space that I'm in that's telling me I got to be so like I got to be in a box, so to speak. And I'm not that girl. I mean, I'm just not her. And so I'm super isolated. I'm back home. COVID hits. I'm like, oh Lord, I ain't been home in about 8 years. Like, I don't know nothing about Kentucky anymore. Not like that, And I had over time met different UXers.
Me.
Created this network of amazing UXers. And somebody said, Amber, I'm isolated. And I was like, girl, me too. And I posted a very first, what was it? Black women in design or Black women in UX virtual meetup. Did it from my parents' basement. And that was April 2020. And that essentially was the start of Black UX Labs. We started off as an organization that was like just geared towards creating space for people, because people not only wanted to talk shop in UX, but they were miserable. Some folk were miserable and sad. And wait a minute. Okay, the world has shut down. So now I can't network like I used to. I've probably moved away from home or whatever felt like home to come to this tech bubble that's making me feel even more alone. And now the world has shut down. Like, where do I go get my hair done? Where do I go get my nails done? Where do I go? Wait a minute. This is over. This is impacting my quality of life.
Yes.
In a way that I didn't anticipate or expect. And that's kind of what started it all for me was, I was ready to stretch. I didn't want to just be behind the desk anymore, conducting the research. I wanted to be one of the problem solvers. of what I was seeing internally from product development that just showed a space where, why are all the Black people leaving? Why are we so unhappy? And why do we keep leaving these jobs? We're so smart, we're brilliant, and yet we're coming to each other secretly being like, hey, I ran out. Go save yourself.
To the point you were making before my audio cut out. Y'all gonna catch this in the podcast. I had such a similar experience as you, where all of these African American designers, or minorities in general, just not specifically us, would be coming up to me and saying, I don't feel at home here. There is no sense of community here. There is no sense of empowerment. I feel like I've run my race and no one is listening to me. I'm doing the due diligence. I'm doing the research. They aren't implementing the practices. They don't care. How do I have this conversation in this work structure? How do I get to a place where I feel whole and happy? And very much weren't feeling that way. And that's one of the reasons why I reached out to Black UX Labs, is that I was like, oh, this is a community of people. And I'm finding all of these people who are like, yeah, I hate it here. I hate this job. I hate everything about it. I feel like I'm an inauthentic version of myself. And even as recently as last week, I was talking to two friends. And both of them said, yeah, I've picked up what they would call white habits in order to appease. And they were like, I don't love hiking, but like all of my coworkers hike. So I started hiking to find a sense of correlation with that community, or when that's not something that I naturally was interested in doing. I might have developed a love for it, but the place that I started from is different, because this wasn't necessarily something that I wanted to do, but I needed a place of commonality. And I remember being a part of a conversation in my own work where the entire team was talking about like, what's something that you spend an extravagant amount of money on, and everybody's going around the room and someone's like, oh, I got custom skis that cost like 15,000, and I got like a custom bike built that was like 20, and they're like, what about you, Monique? And I was like, like rent and food and bills, and like that's the type of stuff I spend $20,000. I'm not spending $20,000 on a bike, baby. Like that's not my life. We are living in different spaces.
So I want to go back to something Amber said about like, you felt like you hit the ceiling. You kept hearing from other Black UX designers that they hit their ceiling, and your first boss even told you you're doing too much. And me as a white woman, I mean, that's it. That's the thing. I'm a white woman and I will never be in your shoes. But there are times where Monique is doing something and I'm like, you need to calm down. You're doing way too much. And she's like, you don't get it. I have to prove myself 10 times more than you do. And I'm like, but you're perfect. You're amazing at what you do. And she's like, no, you will never get it. I have to do this. And so for you to, I mean, not to recognize, but to be like, a ton of people are feeling this way, having to work to the point where like you're doing too much and you've hit your ceiling and there's nothing else to do. And then to create a space is amazing. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. If I could add to that, at the time, I didn't know that this was normal for many of us in the space. And I don't want to lose this, but in my efforts of building community, I also started, like many other communities focused on design or just upskilling people in general. We start with basically getting people prepared. And I'll never forget having Miss Cheryl Holmes on one of our virtual events back in 2020, maybe even early 21. She's like an OG in design. And she said, no amount of preparation will help Black people in a space where they were not invited. And I was just like, well, damn. Like, I mean, such a valid point. But a point that I had not recognized, because the data shows that Black people only make up 3% of UX designers. And it's been that way for 50 years.
Yeah.
So to kind of give like context, I'm from Kentucky. The Kentucky Derby just passed. The Kentucky Derby is 150, well, it's 150 years old. It was the 150th. So it's a big deal here. Everybody was excited about all the events taking place. Now, again, history buff over here. I'm like, all right, let me do some dig in here and see what's all about. Because if we going all the way back to 150, we tiptoeing into slavery time. So let's see what's really going on. So in that, I wrote a couple articles about it too, but I found that the first 11 races were won by Black jockeys. At the time, the Kentucky Derby, there was like really no other sports, going on in the U.S. at that time. So the horse racing was a big deal. And at the time, of course, many freed or formerly freed enslaved people knew how to groom, nurture, take care of, race these horses. Clearly, obviously, they've been doing the work. So at this point, if they're winning the races, they're also winning the money. Well, to keep the short story sweet and short, the white folk was like, nope, you will not become a LeBron on my watch. You will not be soaking up all this money. So in comes Plessy versus Ferguson, which says Black and white people are equal but separate. Y'all can't be in the same spaces. So for 70 years, there wasn't another Black jockey in the Kentucky Derby. So when I think about my experience as a UXer, I'm constantly thinking about doing those stats. Like, it wasn't designed for me. The system was not designed for me to be here. However, that doesn't mean I can't show up. That just also means that I'm going to have to play a game that is systemic, and the barriers and the bias are going to be so prevalent that it may be difficult for me to see what I would call success or a win in this space.
Yeah. Thank you for that little tidbit of history. I'm all about it. If it's like based on a true story, I'm watching it. But first I'm going to read the book, and then I'll watch the movie, and then I'll be like, and I'm all about that underdog story. So, nobody wants to watch a story of a successful man become more successful.
And I think what got me for the reason I can correlate this to the Kentucky Derby is because it's also another space where I feel like, am I really like invited here, or am I just showing up? Mm-hmm. And I think being in design, knowing the ability that we have to create spaces and places for people, it is now hard to turn a blind eye to a space that is clearly designed without you in mind. Mm-hmm. I now know too much. I'm James Baldwin with it. Like I can't unknow what I know, and now I know that you designed it this way, and now like, oh man. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think, and again, love the Derby, but just thinking about the realities of the experiences. Well, yeah, it was built that way. So 70 years and 50 years are not too far apart. And if Black people are only making up 3% of the space in UX design for 50 years, it's because it was designed that way. So how do we infiltrate a space where we're not invited, but we were asked to come along in 2021, 22? Or no, I'm sorry, 2020 and 21. Like, what's that experience going to be like for people? And I think, Monique, like what you were saying is, I was finding out from other people, because I'd already lived it. I guess by the time COVID hit, I had already experienced the discrimination. Yep. So when I said I was tired, I was here in Kentucky on a reprieve, like, Mama, just make me a bologna sandwich, please. Get me back to where I was. I was ultimately trying to pour back into me what I felt like had been taken from me over the years. Yeah. And again, I love the space, but I think from my spirit and my soul, it was a bit rough. It was a little rough.
Yeah. First, you looking amazing in your Kentucky Derby outfit. I saw your post on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
But also, it was really interesting to read about the journey that you just expressed on there. Like, I find that you always give amazing, like, factoids in your posts. I look forward to them. They are so informational. They long, though, girl. But they are so informational.
Good to know. Look, and let me know.
But so informational. Because I think you asked when we were at Afrotech, you were like, oh, y'all should come down for the Derby. My first thought was, that ain't our space, baby. That ain't for us. They don't want us there at all. But hearing you describe that you want to, you know, create this latitude where you take up space and even spaces that were not designed for us is important, because I think that we think that about a lot of different things. There are a bunch of sports, there's a bunch of spaces where I'm like, that's not for us. So we just don't attend. We're not a part of that. And figuring out the history of those spaces so that we understand, you know, how powerful it can be to move in those places is incredibly like resounding for an audience who might be like, I wouldn't do that. And I think the same about like hockey. Would I probably go to a hockey game? No, it's not my sport. I don't really know too many Black hockey players. Golf, in some respects, outside of Tiger Woods, which we all know, those are spaces that aren't necessarily designed with us in mind, but have some historical context to us that we just don't know because it's not taught in our environments. And how do we get past that? Love that.
Yeah. I want to touch on a subject that Monique and I had like an off the camera conversation. And we were talking about like, how many Black people do you know, Jessica? And, you know, are you attending more of these events? And I was like, for me as a white woman, if I see something called Black UX Labs, I know who that's for. And I want to be able to give you the space. I don't want to be that white woman who is just pushing into a space that I don't belong in. And so when I see some of these events sometimes, and I was like, this looks like it's an event for Black women, Black men, I want to be able to give you that space. And sometimes for me, I'm the outsider, and I'm like, I'm okay being the outsider. But I was hearing from Monique, she's like, well, sometimes those events are for everybody. So it's an interesting space to be in, because I recognize that you're trying to create an inclusive space. And then I think from a white person's perspective, as a non-Black woman, we want to be able to interact because we do see the value in working with a diverse audience. So from my perspective, it is, we want to participate, but we just don't know when it's appropriate to do that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. So Monique, I don't know if you remember, but we had quite a few like white women specifically who were a part of Black UX Labs in the you know, in the beginning, and many of them who still rock with us to this day and figure, you know, ask ways of support, how they can support. And of course, me, it's always, you know, shoot me some money. How do I know you like me if you don't send me any money? But in addition to that, like also, you know, giving us job opportunities, giving us mentorship, you know, giving us just some time and some influence and just and realness. I think too, again, right now what we're seeing are people are having a difficult time landing a job. So coming in to provide real context as to what is it, why is this so difficult, and what can you do to mitigate or navigate is helpful. So those types of moments, I'd say I have two answers for you, Jessica. One, Black UX was a bird call. Okay. That was my way in the basement of my parents' home to say, hey,
come on. That's for us. The bird call was for us.
It was where y'all at? Come find me.
Oh my God.
That's what that was. It was definitely a bird call. And it worked. It was a bird call that worked. And but as I grew as a professional, as a CEO, and as a business, Black UX growing as a business, I definitely have gotten a lot of feedback around like, okay, but am I allowed, if I'm not Black, am I allowed to participate in this? And now looking back, I'm realizing like that bird call to this day is always going to be the tone that I use to find my people, because I'm a Black woman who started a business. So you're just always going to have that tone. But I do see where opportunities for expansion, and I do see opportunities to broaden it so that it's more inclusive of the fact that I'm really targeting like leaders, and I want to retain our leaders so that we don't just drop, we don't just quit and never look back at this business and industry again. And that was, but it took me 4 years. It's been 4 years in business to realize that I was creating a bird call for Monique. I was looking for Monique. Monique was my persona. Yes, honey. I was like, Monique, where are you? And then when I found her, Monique was doing the things that I recognized were not considered to be all of, like, what's the word I want to use? she wasn't being protected in this space. Like, she deserves to be protected and nurtured and empowered and uplifted so she can keep going, so she can keep running. And I saw Black UX as that safe space to house some empowerment and hand holding and hugging. We don't have to be, it doesn't have to be thousands of people that are coming to your rescue, but sometimes that one girlfriend or that one guy friend that's just like, hey, hold your head. Here are some tips that you can, like, that was where it started. That's what I wanted it to be. And now what I'm seeing is that there are more people in that space that need to be told to hold your head, to keep going, to stay ready. And so my two answers: one, it was a bird call. Two, we're growing and we're expanding so that more people feel welcome to come in, because it isn't just about, it isn't just for Black people, but it will always have a Black tone because I'm a Black woman.
Yeah. So. It makes me think of like LGBTQ.
Oh, honey, they're in the building.
Yeah. And you don't have to be LGBTQ to go to the events, but you go to show that you support, you're an advocate, you're a friend of and so I think for part of what we're talking about, it's showing up to let people know that you're there to support them. And when maybe somebody does have that down moment, it doesn't matter that I'm a white woman. I still see your worth and potential, and I'm going to raise you up. Yeah. So I think it's a sensitive topic, I think, because there's a line that we don't want to, we want to give you your space, but at the same time, like, how do we show that we support the work that you're doing?
I found too that showing up is half the battle for all of us, and knowing how to show up. And I think you made mention earlier about feeling like an outsider at moments. And I'm just, okay, I'm gonna keep it short and keep it brief, but go ahead. Outsider story. Most of the places and spaces that you have probably kind of connected in when it comes to your professional career are defaulted in whiteness. Like, I know. You probably just kind of get to show up and be like, I might know somebody or I may not, but I know that generally speaking, it's going to be comfortable for me to at least maybe stay 30 minutes to an hour to network. Well, imagine knowing you're going to come, knowing like before you even walk in the door, it's probably not, it's going to look close to me. And if I probably have had to think about how I wear my hair, what clothes I wore, what my nails look like, are my lashes too much? Because again, too much is what Black women do. That's why we are a prototype. But there is a moment where being an outsider is too heavy. It's too much work. It's too much of a thought process, and it is exhausting. And so I can easily say, if I feel that way, I don't like networking. Networking is my thing. I don't like doing it. But that's because really I'm saying I'm not comfortable in these spaces. These spaces do not play music that loosens me up a bit. The staff isn't super friendly. There's nothing worse than the person at the front desk who starts it off, and you're like, well, damn, now I don't even want to go further because I don't even like how you greeted me. Like, there are moments like that. And so I think what I'm hearing from you a little bit is, I don't know how to show up sometimes in those moments, and half the battle is just showing up. And even though you're going to be uncomfortable, you are going to be uncomfortable. It is not necessarily built with you in mind. It still needs, just like any space, your perspective, your thoughts, your experience, expertise. And I don't want us to, and for anybody else listening, especially non-Black leaders in this space, don't not show up because you're going to be uncomfortable. Because really the real reality is all your counterparts are uncomfortable all the time. Yep. And so they're just navigating it in a different way than you may have to. However, they still are showing up. So for those that are showing up, give yourself some grace to be like, I'm also nervous. I don't really know what to say. I don't want to say the wrong thing. But know that if, you've seen videos gone viral where a white girl does a dance and she does it really good like the Black girls do it. And what happens? They all hype her up. They all cheering her on. So show up, but show up ready to learn, ready to listen, and be proactive. And then it's like, we're going to hype you up to go advocate. Now, if you show up acting a fool, then we're going to have to escort you out.
Yep.
But outside of that, outside of that, there's always, I think what the best part of sometimes being a Black woman in this space is I start with love, because that's what Black women do. We start with love. Now, that's because it's ingrained in us to be productive. So if I got to be productive and I got to show up to work every day, I got to find a way to make this like work for me. Like, I've never not known work. So at this point, if work is ingrained, I'm going to find a way to show up happy, fun, make it exciting, make it cool. There's nothing worse than being in a space where it's just vanilla. And I mean vanilla in the sense of tone, color, ideas. It's just everybody's thinking the same thing. There's nothing more just draining than that experience. And so when you have only ever known work, you find different ways to make work go by a little easier. And that's where you get factoid. That's where you get a lot of Black hymns and songs, because on the plantation, even though it's like, oh, it's a negative, like, oh, Black people on the plantation, those people had to know how to stay active out there in those fields. How do they do it? By singing songs, by laughing and joking with each other. And that has been passed down by generations. Community is what we do, because we've never really had the opportunity to know rest like our counterparts at times. And so what you'll find is we're creating spaces of community for us to be productive and to love on each other, because that's what we know.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all that and listening to me as an outsider coming to you. And it's not the uncomfortable level. It's just respect, So thank you for having this conversation with me. I appreciate that.
There was something you said, Amber, that I want to tap in on, because it's something that I didn't understand in the beginning of my career, but was a very resounding sound in the end. I want to say when I first started my career, I was very much, I'm going to say like Jessica in some respects, where the spaces were very white. I was not comfortable. I didn't know how to create a sense of community with people that I did not have a lot of in common with. The events that I went to, I might not have made connection with the people who are there, but I made connection with the people who were staff there. So even when we're in those environments and we don't see people who look like us and sound like us and whatever, I have gotten so many applause from janitors, from front desk people, from, just people passing by who are African American. They pour into you this grace and love that you're in this space and that they are proud of you and that they want to see you do well. And that made me continue to want to go back. It wasn't the environment that I was in with my, counterparts. It was all the other people who were like, I know you're not comfortable here. You don't seem comfortable here. Like a bartender literally said to me, you do not seem comfortable here, but you stay in this room. I was like, sir, I'm trying to go home. He said, I know. He said, you don't seem comfortable here, but you stay in this space. And over time, I started to develop a sense of I know I'm the shit. And I'm going to tell everybody in this room that that's what it is. And then I became more open and frequent. But the mentality that I think I had to get past was when you're Black, your parents always tell you, if you work hard, you'll get promotions, you'll get money, you'll get all of these things. That's not true. If you can't develop a sense of community with the coworkers that you have, you will not elevate. And I certainly have not gotten promotions because they said, well, it doesn't really seem like you get along with us. And what they were really saying is you separate yourself from us. You are not a part of this core structure or this core community that we have as or corporation, because you are different than us. And we can't find commonality in you. And as a result, we're not willing to elevate you. And I had to be able to leave that space.
I would even say that not even just race, but age. Where I was working at Wells Fargo, everybody was my mom's age. Here I come, I'm in my 20s. I want to go out after work. I want to go not network. I want to go to the bar. I want to go drink. I want to go meet my future mister. And, they're going home. They're taking care of their kids and doing homework. And that was something I could not relate to, but they also couldn't relate to anything I was doing. Or I would go on a date and tell them about it. And all of a sudden I'd get teased about something I told them. And then you become very hesitant to share parts of your life. And when you separate yourself from that, then it comes up, she's not a team player. She doesn't connect with the team well. It doesn't matter the fact that, you know, you took a 3-hour process and took it down to 30 minutes. You're not a team player.
Mm-hmm.
So can I ask you both a question? So
yeah.
One of the things that we focus on at Black UX, right now we're running a cohort. It's called Design for Impact. And it's the summer cohort. It's 12 weeks long, but we focus on truly helping people attract jobs and not chase jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So in the sense of really aligning with their superpowers, their skill sets, and ultimately their values. And what I'm hearing from both of you, and like you said, without including race, without including age, without including, you know, all these other factors around identity, how have you all been able to take those experiences and then go find work or attract more work that was going to either uplift and empower you where you were, meet you where you were? Mm-hmm. Instead of asking you to be a 40-year-old mom or asking you to be a white woman at the office, how did you find spaces? What tactics did you use to start being able to be like, I've experienced that already and I don't want to do that again. How do I avoid that for the future?
You want to go first?
Sorry. Same person. So there wasn't a whole lot of space for me to go off and branch. But when I left corporate and I started my own business, I was like, how do I take this big brand know-how and help the community? Because I would drive into work and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm making the rich richer. Nobody really cares. We're in the news for bad press all the time. So I was like, how can I help elevate the small businesses like me who've got the smaller budgets? And Monique and I, we've talked back and forth so many times about like, she's like, you got to pay. And I'm like, oh, I'm sympathetic. Oh, what's that? You had this happen to you? Okay, I'll take the price down. Like, nope. I'm trying to help small business owners to like go to the next level. Yeah. And then after doing that for a bit, Monique and I started the Creative Circle Collective, and we've been going back and forth about like our whys. And Monique's like, I want to make sure that there's a Black representation in UX and design. And she's like, what's your why? And it took me a while to think about it, but my why is backed in Jesuit tradition. And the Jesuits, I'm not sure if you're familiar, Society of Jesus, St. Ignatius Loyola, and their focus is on education and social justice. And I was like, that's what that's my whole life summed up in one sect. So then I was like, okay, I did my small business thing. Now it's time to take it. Now that I have a name for it, it's inclusivity, diversity, social justice, education. So even though I'm not Black and, you know, Monique's like, we got to raise up the Black women. We got to raise up Black UX, and we got to define or I'm thinking of the word. We've got to change these statistics. I'm like, I've always wanted to do this because I have felt like an outsider at times because you would think, you know, oh, Jessica's very extroverted. I can be very introverted. I'm very weird. So I'm not attracting.
Not weird. She's just claiming that.
I'm not attracting hordes of people just by like showing up in a room. So I was like, I want to be able to help the underappreciated. Yeah. And so I think that's where I come from. With what I do.
And I think what I have found is more people that are coming through Black UX are finding happiness in their work when they are able to align with their why, or like you just said, when they are able to claim it. And I think where I benefited as a UX professional when I was just solely working as a researcher, I knew I'm the girl that they call when they want to make sure that they are doing some like collateral damage. I'm here to make sure that, have you gone too far with the people of color? Have you gone too far? Like the Bumble, I don't know if you all are familiar with the Bumble mishap. They had a marketing mishap.
Yeah.
And, but like, you know, the UX researcher, market researcher in me was like, yeah, somebody should have definitely been on that, you know, to ask those types of questions. And I think by aligning with my why, I've been able to align and attract jobs that were looking for me. And that has given me more confidence to navigate spaces that I knew I was going to be the outsider. Yeah. Because I'm not here to be you. I'm not here to show up as you. I'm here for the people who are looking for me. And that, for me, has given me the confidence to grow Black UX Labs, to expand past what I was told. And so hearing you all say the same thing is like, that's it. Like knowing that why, holding on to it, building off of it. I mean, that's the only way that seems to do it. Yep. Otherwise, you're just kind of doing what you've been told or what you've seen and not really what lights your soul on fire. And specifically around design, how do you show up as a designer, whether UX research, UX design, or strategy, if you're not honest and truthful about how your journey, your lived experiences impacted how you make these decisions? So now you open up the floodgates to realize there are several different ways of entry here, and we are only looking at one for this product. Yep. And I found that my authenticity has gotten me further out here than being loud, being boastful, being whatever. It's because I'm gonna show up and be exactly why. I'm going to be exactly what and why how I want to show up in this UX space specifically.
Yeah, I would say that would be my answer. Is once I started to move in my authenticity, I found the spaces that were for me. I found the jobs that were for me and the people who were going to be for me authentically. So there's a sense of, I craft a sense of community. Jessica always says, like, Monique will meet somebody for the first time and then they be her best friend, and then she give them her number, and now they're lifelong friends. And I could literally ask them to do anything. And I found that to be true. Like once I meet someone and we have a genuine connection, even this, I'm like, we met, we had a genuine connection.
Talking to friends.
And I'm like, hey, Amber, you want to be on a podcast? I was like, that's just who I am. But I was like, but there's a level of connection that I get with people in person. Like I need to stand in the same room with you, and I need to see you. I need you to see me, and I need us to understand each other. And once we are both in that space inside of our authenticity and we can find a sense of community, then I need to like move forward in that. And as long as I live that way, I'm good no matter what. Like I have had, I host a lot of events and things like that. So I've had companies say like, oh, you're super fun. We'd love for you to come work for us. And I'm like, nah, I'm doing my own thing right now. But I know for sure that if I need to find a job, I can find one. Like if I need to go out there and do something, I can do it. I'm very capable. I can leverage my network for the things that I need. We leverage the network for our business, for the podcast, for all of these different things that we have and are a part of. I literally have a list of 40 people who can be a part of this podcast as a result of just like networking and being in the same room as them. So me living in my authenticity pushes me down my alignment path for purpose. And that's, helping designers in general find their people, find their space, find their community. But that didn't happen for me until I was a part of a community that did not serve me in the way I needed it to. But even that for me was me pushing myself into a space I didn't really want to be in. Like the first time that I joined a not-for-profit, I was like, I just don't feel like I'm not networking the way that I should. Like, I don't know if I'm doing it right. And being a part of that space and and crafting events around that, I'm like, okay, all these people don't look like me. None of these people talk like me. None of these people engage like me. Okay, I need to create a space for the people who are like me. I need to create a space for the people, regardless of race. I need to create a space for the people who are like me. And my people are wildly overproductive. It's just what it is. As a Black woman, that's a staple in my life, but that's just me. I was like, they are authentic in their messaging and the platforms that they service and the things that they do. They're purposeful and their alignment. I was like, and they have a sense of community around them, regardless of if it's the same community that I'm in or a different one than I'm in. There is a sense of community involvement in the things that they do. And ever since then, I was like, just feels like every time I meet somebody along the way, as soon as I vibe with them, I'm like, you want to do something together? You want to partner for a project? You want to do something? And I was like, every single time it'll be like, yep, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do this. That's why I got 50 businesses I'm starting, y'all. And I'm over indexed. But I'm like, every single time there's just some people who light my soul. Like Amber, you're somebody who lights my soul. Every time I meet you, you're like a vision, a presence. You're so articulate. I'm like, that's what I'm trying to be when I grow up. That's exactly who I try to be when I grow up.
Girl, I told you I'm young, 22. I'm still 22.
Me too.
No, I appreciate that. Well, so look, with that being said, how do you guys, because Monique, you know, when we met up or linked up at Afrotech, I pretty much said like, look, y'all, Black UX had to, I had to kind of slow down a little bit because I became somebody's mama.
Yep.
And, I told you, I find myself to be the most happy and the best productively when I know that I've done like my mommy thing. And I thrive off of doing my mommy thing. And maybe because I'm still early in it too, and he's my only one. I don't know. I ain't got nothing else to do. I don't know. But I wonder how you guys are able to balance the expectations of entrepreneurship as mommies and young, under 10, under 10.
Yeah.
Because that's the part where I'm like, I'm moving as fast as I can.
Yeah.
And one thing that I know we keep talking about, specifically Black women, but that is a lived experience, just constantly being productive. And it's just expected of us to just work. Even that whole, like, I'm working tirelessly and I'm staying at the office late at night. Them days are OVO. That I stayed late one night till 11 o'clock 1 week. It was like 1 week while I was living in New York. I stayed at work that late. And I told do you think anybody gave me a trophy, a sticker, a pat on the back for that? So I was like, wait a minute, what am I? And exhausted, like showing up exhausted, looking exhausted. The rat race for me was like, if I can't live in New York, comfortably like the people on HGTV when they flip in these homes in town, then I don't want to live here because my quality of life requires me to have a little bit of slow down and peace. Because one benefit of growing up in Kentucky, you are not in the rat race. You don't even know what a rat race is. The urgency is just not there. So one thing I realized about myself, I've never really been trained to move at this speed. And now you want me to do all of that plus be a good mother? Yeah. Oh Lord, help. How are y'all balancing it right now?
I'm going to let you go first, Jessica, because this is a conversation we were just having.
Yeah, we just had this conversation this morning. It is not easy to be an entrepreneur and a mother. Even though times have changed so much, women are in the workforce, it still comes down to the women to be the caregivers of the children. Yes, I want to acknowledge all the dads out there who take care of their children as well. But society at large still has that expectation on women. And when, mommy's got a call, but somebody's sick, or mommy's sick, daddy's sick, kids are sick, mommy's still the one who gets up. Daddy's in bed. He's helpless. So when you're an entrepreneur, you're working 25 hours a day. There is no downtime. And adding that layer of having children, it's checking your phone as you're having cuddles on the couch, making sure no work emails came in.
Behind their head, though. It's kind of got to be behind the head so that they don't really see that you're not paying attention to them.
Oh, they know I'm not. I've seen this episode before. All right. Blue Week. I've seen it. Okay. I can quote it.
Oh my God.
Y'all watch it again.
Miss Rachel. Miss Rachel is my nemesis.
But it's also like Monique knows that at 3:00 I stop working and I do not get back on the computer until 9:00 when my kids go to sleep. And then I need to have my nighttime coffee, and I'll either hold on until 12:00, or there's sometimes where we're texting each other at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Go to bed, you have 3 hours of sleep, you get up at 7 to get the kids going, and it's exhausting. Like, I feel bad. I'm like yawning as we record this, but it is when you're trying to balance so much.
When you're tired, you're tired.
Yeah. And, you want to run that successful business. You want to be a good mom. And just how there's like extra expectations on us in the workplace. There's like all these expectations on our children. Like my kid's in kindergarten. He's already reading 4-letter words. Then I got my 4-year-old. He's at preschool. And the preschool teacher messaged me and was like, oh yeah, he's already sounding out words. And I'm like, I mean, he's just observing what his big brother does, but I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that big brother is on top of his reading. I need to make sure that like I'm constantly reinforcing. So like, you know, we'll be driving and be like, oh, what's that number on the speed limit sign? And, you know, like, I just want to make sure, I want to make sure that they're smart, that they're cared for and they're provided for. And I think our society, we overspoil our children. And because we're trying to give them what we didn't have.
Right.
But it's difficult when you're like, okay, I stay home. My kid, Finn, he stays home with me 2 days a week. And so I try not to schedule anything on those days where he could come and interrupt a call. But you do ultimately have those moments. And this is the part of the conversation Monique and I were having. It's like, when is it appropriate? When it is not? How do you broach that topic and the sensitivity that goes with it? Like, do you tell a mom your kid can't be here when you know that the societal expectation is still there? Mom takes care of the kids. Daycare is the cost of a mortgage.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've got neighbors who don't work because their paycheck would go to childcare. So do you work and never see your kid? Or do you stay at home, not have a job, and raise your child? It is a hard balance. And there is no right or wrong answer, but it's something that I think after COVID just became more prevalent, where we worked at home, we got comfortable working at home. Okay, we can save money now instead of me stretching our monthly budget so thin that we're like, okay, did we get paid? Can we go to the grocery store? It's now, okay, I can keep my kid at home with me for a couple days a week. We can live a little bit more comfortably. Because there are some people who, you know, they went to college, their parents paid for everything, but I was never given any handouts. The moment I turned 16, my mom was like, you need to get a job. Oh, you want to get a job? You need to get a car. I had to tap into my life savings, which was like every $50 birthday card I got from like a grandparent. Everything I had made went to my first car. Then if 16 came, my mom stopped buying my clothes. My mom stopped paying for like lunch money. Like she was like, you need to be able to support yourself. And so I wasn't given handouts. So everything that I have is because I worked for it. And so I want to give grace to all the moms out there who are struggling in that balance, knowing that like you worked for everything you have. You're still trying your hardest. And I'm sorry to say, this economy is shit. This is horrible. Inflation. My parents bought their first house for like $36,000. Now houses are starting in the low 800,000s. No,
right.
This is not making the same salary that your mom makes. You know, like this is not feasible.
Yeah.
So to go back to your question, how do I balance both? It's a struggle, and you just try your best and hope that you won't be judged for your best, and, you know, show up when you can.
Yeah. That resilience piece is key. And I think that like I have to stay pouring into my mental as well. So I don't feel the judgment doesn't feel as heavy. You know what I mean? Because it's coming regardless. I mean, whether it's family, that's, you know, oh, your son's climbing up this now. And it's like, well, he is a 2 and he is a boy. So there he is. Or it's work relationships. And I was on a call with a woman this week who said, our very first sales call, Amber, you had a newborn on your lap. And I was like, yeah. Because that's what it was. Like,
I can relate.
I don't know how else I was supposed to. I could either canceled and we would have never had the call, or you just gonna meet my son and he's gonna play with the little thing here while we talk. And here we are. 2 years later, you're still rocking with me. So something's working.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate a bit, but I'll explain my process too. Or my perspective. I do think that it's hard to balance as a mom. The expectations are intense and immense. And I think even more so when you're a person of color, because there is this inherent productivity in you that you need to be doing. So balancing
sleeping is rude.
Exactly. How dare you think about sleep? Because I'm like, even for me right this second, I'm like, we have this business together. We have the podcast. I'm on the board of 2 non-for-profits. I'm also an advisory board member in another thing. I'm starting another business with 2 friends. So like there are a million things that I need to be doing at any one time. And I think that the balancing act is difficult. Yes. But I do it anyway. Like I just figure it out. I'm like every day is a process in figuring out like how I can maneuver things in order to be most productive. And sometimes that productivity doesn't happen between traditional business hours of 9 to 5. Sometimes that productivity happens at 3:00 in the morning when everybody's sleeping and the house is quiet and I can give myself a second to think and to like rest in some respects. Sometimes that doesn't happen. There is no such thing. She up at 3:00 in the morning, vibing, having the time of her life. So I think that is a balancing act inherently like good and bad. I mean, like it just is what it is on a daily basis. I will say though that I think the corporate structure in which we operate in right this second doesn't allow for our kids to be a part of these spaces. When you have your own business, you get to decide for your corporate entity whether you want your kids to be there or don't want your kids to be there. And everyone else has to accept or deny that. But then that means that you're willing to lose out on deals or opportunities if you know that this isn't feasible. And how do you do that and still provide for this child that much needs diapers and wipes? Diapers cost $50 a box, y'all.
I mean,
Go
literally.
to Costco. Costco, baby.
It's still expensive. But like, to say, like, how do you balance?
Or get scholarships on diapers? Or there's some like
I'm about to start a GoFundMe. I'm about to start a GoFundMe. It's just Monique's baby need diapers. But I think that like sometimes the distraction of your kids in these environments allows people to think in the mentality that like she's a mom, so she can't handle this.
Yeah.
So like sometimes in these structures, people are like, oh, we expect for you to do yada, 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 yada. When you're not able to perform at the capacity that they see you do, either they don't want to work with you or they're saying like, you know, there was just like a LinkedIn post that I read where a woman was, she applied for a job, went through the interview process, got it, all the good stuff. And then she asked them about the maternity leave policy because she was 2 months pregnant. They rescinded the offer. The expectation of employers that you are able to figure out childcare on your own, because that's a personal issue as far as they're concerned, and that it doesn't interfere with the corporate structure is very high. And yes, it is a balancing act for us, but do we consider it to be the responsibility of these entities to be sympathetic to your balancing act, which is what it is some days. It's like, that's your personal situation. You got to figure that out on your own. Or do we think that the world should have more sympathy for us in this respect? And then when I start thinking about like common sense and sympathy and stuff like that, it's very personal. Like, I think it's common sense to, if I saw a 3-year-old sitting on the street by themselves, I would approach them and be like, hey, baby, what's going on? Why are you out here? Where's your mommy? But you can watch a bunch of YouTube videos and content and stuff like that of kids getting grabbed off the street with 50 people standing there and nobody says a thing, doesn't blink an eye. So we're asking that same world to be respectful and responsible of life when they don't see that. And the mentality is shifting, because where it was acceptable during COVID because you had your kids around and that was acceptable because you're inside of your home structure, companies are asking you to return back to work and be a full-time employee in the office or do some type of hybrid situation. Their expectation is not that you're going to bring your kids to the office with you. It's that you figure this out because that's a personal problem. We're paying you. It's your responsibility to figure out daycare or whatever you got to do. We need you to be focused in this. And then a part of it for me is like, I'm not giving my full self to my business sometimes if my daughter is here, because my preference is always to spend time with her. I'm not giving my whole self to this because my mind is split between 2 things. It's like, oh, she just started walking, or she said her first word, or she did this new like trick or something like that. How responsive can I be to the person that I'm on the phone with or the thing that I'm supposed to be doing when I very much want to take time away to be just a mom and just like live in that space? But also balancing that with the realities that diapers are $50 and this girl needs them. So, hey girl, bye.
That's that on that. That sums that up. I mean, it is what it is, like you said. And some days I think though I'd like to live in my Erykah Badu moment and just be out in the ground. Like we live near deer and birds chirping. You know, there's again in New York City when you hear the hustle and bustle and sirens and all that. That's like if that's your thing or if that's where you're from, that's what you know. But I did not grow up on dirt roads, so I don't know what anybody's preference or perception, I should say. Of
I'm on dirt
Kentucky
roads
is.
now, so I'm here.
Okay, I grew up like I live in the cosmopolitan area of Kentucky, and Louisville. It's very much a city, a big city, in a rural surrounded area. But I still very much love being in nature with my kid. And I find that if I can move slower, which I know is ideal for so many, but when I move slower, I move wiser. And I think having a child forced me to realize that I had been sprinting for so long and was exhausted, but was really ended up right where I didn't think I was going to be, which was back home in Kentucky. And so now I'm like, I just want to move with intentionality and I guess let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
I have heard from numerous places, coaches, that you can only manage 3 things a day. And when you put more than 3 things on your plate every day, that's when you can't pay enough attention to it. So my 3 things are usually my family, my business, and managing my house.
Yeah.
It's an old house. My husband's not here all the time. It's cleaning up. It's doing laundry. I can have those 3 things, but if I put on, Monique knows, I like to work with my local government, and I'm always like getting involved in policy and stuff.
She trying to be a senator, y'all. She about to be Senator Jessica. We're going to get the legislation passed.
But if I take time to go into this government route, which of the 3 things that I said were my priority are now not a priority?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have to give something up. And to go to what Monique said about corporate and, you know, you've got to figure out childcare on your own. Just because I'm in the office does not mean I stop being a mother.
Yeah.
If I get a call from the school nurse and I got to go, then I got to go.
I got to go.
You know? So
and imagine all the moms who've been penalized for having to go. For having to go and go deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also Monique, that woman you said who got laid or her offer was rescinded because she's 2 months pregnant. That's a lawsuit right there.
Yeah,
so.
She said in her post that she considered going the lawsuit path, but the amount of energy and effort that she would need to expend in order to do that would make it so much more horrible. So she started her own business, long story short.
These are the stories that need to be told, though. Because so many people, they're like, I just don't have the energy or the strength to do a lawsuit. That becomes one of her 3 things. She's got to worry about her new baby, her new job, maybe a relationship, or her household. That a lawsuit means that she can't be active for one of those 2 things or 3 things. She can't be present. So I always try to I try to keep that in mind. If it's a business day, and Monique and I, when we work together, I try to have a schedule for each day. And I've been saying, like, you know, if I need to do work on the website, I'm going to do work on the website today. I'm not going to do work on the website today, tomorrow, and the next day. I need to group it together. So my focus is on this one thing.
Yeah.
So I always try to keep that in my mind as well. Like, how many times am I trying to add too much to my plate?
I think a result of or a symptom of being overproductive for me was anxiety, high anxiety. And for anybody who's listening to this podcast, like, you know, when you got high anxiety, you know, when it can be debilitating, it can leave you unproductive because you just like, I don't know what to do. I follow a few different like therapists about mental health, and I have my own therapist, but follow different therapists who said when you multitask, your brain is actually thinking you are in a fight
or flight response. Yep.
Yeah, in a fight or flight response. And I've never been told that before because, again, expected to, and even before motherhood, like just expected to outdo. And so when I go to many of these conferences, essentially we all start with the same thing, and that's mental health. Like, where are you mentally to even navigate this space, right? And even with Black UX and our design for impact, we starting with the mental, because you can't do any of this if you're not right in the mind, or at least being kind to your mind. And one way of doing that is, like you said, focusing in on one thing. And I have been expected, trained, programmed, all the words, to multitask. And I eventually was like, I ain't got it. It's not going to happen. So I'm recognizing my power in being able to delegate and ask for help.
Yes.
Which is like taboo for me. And I ain't gonna say it's all Black women, but it's many of us that we just like, oh, you mean I gotta ask you? You're not just gonna do it?
Oh, that's my thing. I'm like, duh, common sense would have told you you need to be doing it.
But it is forcing me to keep my 3 things. Yeah. Like, look, if y'all want this done, then you're gonna have to show up this way, that way, and the third, so that I can stick to my 3. And one benefit one of the things I loved most about my experience in New York was that you have to be about yourself. Like on the train in the morning is probably the most entertaining, wildest experience you'll have in your day is riding that train. And you never know the characters that are going to be on there. You never know what's going to pop off, but if it does pop off, it's going to be a good show. And one day this girl ended up kind of like falling on the train, because she wasn't holding the rail. She wasn't holding the top or even the side, which I don't blame you. If he doesn't have gloves on, you're just like, you don't know who's touching this. Anyway, she falls. And I had a family member visiting me that weekend, and she's a nurse. So inherently, she kind of reached out, even though she's on the other side, like she wasn't going to catch this girl, no matter what she tried to do. But she tried to reach out and catch her. And I told her, no. One thing about being in New York is you got to hold your own. Now, of course, those closest to her, if she hurts herself, are going to be like, hey, you all right? But the one way that New York works is that everybody holds their own. If you hold your own, this train keeps moving. If you know that you get on the train, you cannot be standing here trying to be the badass without holding on to something. You got to hold on to something. You got to sit down, got to hold, got to lean. But if you don't, and the train throws you, and now you forced everybody else to jump in and try to save you, that's when chaos occurs in New York on a day-to-day basis. And I learned something that just stuck with me, like hold my own, but be clear about what my own is so that I can keep it breezy over here so people can actually assist me when I do need help. Yeah. But if I'm just bag lady over here trying to do all the things all the time, and then expecting people to show up, it just became too much. And so learning how to delegate and learning how to ask for help. And I am not saying that I am all the way healed, because there are certain people I look at like, I wouldn't dare ask you. But there are moments that I am getting better when realizing, like, specifically, I need this done. And I found more people be like, all right, than not.
Okay. I was going to say, this makes me think of just like having people in your corner and letting them know when you need help. I'm an advocate for mental health, therapy, getting on prescriptions. If that's going to help you, I pop a handful of pills every day to make sure my mind stays focused and that I'm not just crying for no reason. And there was a moment where I was having a low and I posted something on Facebook and I had 3 people call me. And they're like, are you okay? Do you need to talk? And those are the people you need in your circle. Somebody who actually, she put another post. She's just being whiny. No, like, are you okay? If somebody posts something or mentions something, follow up on them. Because not only are you looking for support when something happens, you need to be other people's support. And I think that's a theme in this whole episode is being there to support each other.
Yeah.
I'm going to pivot a little bit, but I want to comment on something you said. One of the things that I love that me and you do, Jessica, is that we haven't done it recently, but this is your sign to start. We will randomly text each other and be like, you're amazing. You're wonderful. You're doing an amazing job as a mother, as a business owner. You are capable. You are all of the things. And I'd be like, I am all of the things. Or on your end, you'll say the same. But I was like, I love that, like, at random moments, because I feel like during the fluster of the day when projects need to get done and clients are asking for things or there's a million things happening, you don't necessarily always, that's not always the right time to be like, hey, you're doing an amazing job, right? Like, you got this. And I think mentally you can start to question yourself and think that you're not doing as well as you could be doing because you're in your own head about it. So I always appreciate those moments in time where one of us says to the other, you're doing an amazing job, you're killing it, you're whatever.
Hey Siri, set a reminder to tell Monique he's amazing on Thursday.
That's what Brian has on his phone. He's like, set a reminder to tell Monique to eat lunch.
I did that for myself. So of course, yes, have a corner, have your people. But when you don't, when you don't have the people, when you can't find, everybody's busy. Life is life. And we already talked about the economy. The power that I have found, and maybe, I'm not even going to preface it. The power that I have found in being able to believe and hold myself up.
Yes.
Especially during transitioning. I lost my father during COVID and was pregnant at the same time. So it's just like a weird balance of emotions. And then starting a business, it was just like, what the, like, what is going on? I've set reminders in my phone that at 3 p.m. every day, I say something nice to myself because I found that I can go off the cuff of like, oh, the shame wizard gets loud. Like, oh, you should have, you could have, and had you just done. And so at 3 p.m. every day, my phone literally pops up and says, say something nice to yourself. And I'm like, you know what, girl, your hair is bomb today. Like, like, you really did. Girl, your booty getting big. Like, whatever I need to say to keep pushing me or hug me. When my mama can't hug me, my brother can't hug me, my kid can't hug me, whatever. When I can't get to my people, and I think maybe that's what you all are really hearing from me, is that living away and being immersed in other people's spaces, I had to learn how to hug me because wasn't nobody hugging me. I was expected to show up regardless.
Yes.
And I think that part just got exhausting. And so now, after dealing with all of those moments, I now see, because I used to do Post-it notes on the sink and, I have my Issa Rae insecure moments talking and rapping in the mirror. But I also realized like I need something a little bit more tangible that I can see it and feel it. So along with the gratitude journal, because I don't know too, if you all are business owners, you got to stay in a space of abundance or, you operating out of lack and you get nowhere with that. Especially being Christian, like you just, you got to operate in abundance. And so I found that reminding myself to remind me that you are okay has been the power shifting move that I needed so other people could do the same thing. I was teaching people how to treat me by treating myself the way I wanted to be treated.
Girl, let me put a reminder in my phone real quick. I do, my phone screensaver says I'm no longer shrinking to be digestible. You can choke respectfully. Because I just want myself to know every time I look at my phone and I'm feeling a little bit low that I'm killing it, really. I'm really killing it. I'm out here doing all the stuff, getting all the things done, being the best mama that I can be, making all the things happen. But I want to shift just a little bit because there's a last question that I want to ask you, which is something that I have been experiencing lately, or have been a by proxy of experiencing, which is that a lot of students are coming to me and telling me, I'm a year post graduation, post school. I'm in this environment and economy where I can't find a job. Don't know what to do. Don't know that my portfolio is right. Don't know that my resume is right. I'm applying. I think I had a woman told me she applied to 273 jobs and only got 2 responses. And she's like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. My mental health is suffering. I feel so low. I don't have value. I don't feel like I'm contributing to society, which is a very dangerous headspace to stay in for very long. How do you talk to, or what do you say to someone who has gotten this very expensive degree, has all of the student loan debt, potentially might not have the support of their family and not have these structures in place? What do they do in order to find themselves in a better headspace or to try to seek employment? Or how should they pivot in some respects?
Yeah. So 2 answers. Number 1, start stripping. Number 2, no, I'm joking.
You don't have to. I have considered it. Sex sells. It's $1 billion industry, y'all.
Okay, for
foot model.
Get them toes right. Get you a pedicure. No, I would say lean in though to some hobbies. So, Monique, I don't know if you remember or know, but I DJ, and I was laid off in 2023 from a job that actually supported me really well when I was pregnant. They knew I was pregnant. They still gave me the offer. And then they gave me my 3 months or 4.5 months. And so I really can't even hate on them because they showed me love in a moment where they really didn't have to, like I was a good 36 weeks pregnant, honey. And they was like, we'll see you when you start, when you come back. I said, all right then. However, by leaning into my hobbies, I found more, again, it's all about alignment. And so I found my tribe. I started networking with people who were DJs, who were looking to grow in this space. And I found another source of income. So number one, I'm going to say for those newbies, you need to find another source of income because what's happening in our space is bigger than you. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than your accomplishments, your degrees. And I don't mean to diminish any of that. I'm saying that's a problem that is worldwide right now, but in a space so specific like UX design, there is no quick fix. There's no quick answer I can give anybody to say how to stay ready other than stay ready by nourishing those other parts of you. Like, you got to be, we've all heard about having multiple sources of income. Like, unfortunately right now you kind of have to pour into those aspects of you in order to feel, one, to pay the bills, feel seen, heard, because some of the things that you just mentioned, have nothing really to do with UX. It's like, I don't feel valued. I don't feel worthy. This seems like a safe place. Get your conversation back to God going on. Get you talking, realign there, and then give yourself time to figure out really what you want. Because what I am hearing from the hiring managers, which was answer number 2, is that they don't know who you are. Everybody has made it very clear that you're a designer. Okay, cool. You know how to use the tools. Okay, you're a researcher. Okay, cool. But what point of view do you bring? And something that I brought up earlier in the podcast was that having that point of view is being authentic about your experience is the wave of UX. You have to come in with a point of view so that you are producing and adding to a product build. So essentially, for example, I'm the blind spot queen. Like, you didn't peep that? That's right. You didn't see that right there? Like, that's where I come in and add value because I'm pointing out nuances that they're like, damn, I didn't see that, or no, I didn't consider that. Why? Because I'm authentic about my experience, because I'm able to say there are multiple ways of doing this. And here are some of those. And having that, knowing my why and knowing where my strengths and my talent, my superpowers, I like to call it with Black UX, has made that alignment so much easier. So there is no applying to 200 jobs. It is, I'm clear about the perspective that I bring to the table so that, for example, there's a gentleman in our cohort right now, in our Design for Impact cohort right now, who's designer, great designer, even lives in a tech bubble. So it's like, bro, it's at your fingertips. Like, go for it. And he's like, I'm having a hard time landing the job. I'm getting the interviews. And I said, once I looked at his portfolio and his resume, I'm like, but you're not saying nothing. You just telling them that you know how to do the job. And at this point, because their hiring managers and human resources are trying to reduce people, it's a people reduction economy right now. You got to be more clear than ever about who you are and what you're bringing to the table. And if they have to spend too long, and I mean more than 6 seconds, figuring out what area that you fit in, you are instantly kind of slid to the bottom of the pack, or maybe I'll come back later. And so I think that's what makes it difficult for those newbies and entry level professionals, is because they're not quite sure what point of view they bring to the table, even though they're actually very much clear about what they bring, like who they are. Sometimes I'm finding people are just second guessing because they don't think they're saying the right thing or using the right language. And it's like, no, you are who you are. You've been this way. You really don't even need me to tell you that you are already that girl or that guy. However, if you don't tell them in a succinct manner, you are doing yourself a disservice, because you are asking them to put you where you should be, rather than to tell them where you want to be. And then that's more of the alignment that I'm finding is the win. Though, because that gentleman who I was just referring to, when he recognized, Amber, I really got a thing for fitness. Like, that's my space. And I really like working on being like fit tech. baby, put that everywhere, put that anywhere on your brand so that those companies and recruiters can find you. And in 1 week after him updating that, he had 4 recruiters reach out to him because he was being more specific as to what he really wanted to do instead of just being like, I'm a designer. Like, child, there's about to be 4 million of us in 2024. 4 million. You got to separate yourself from the competition. But that's through being clear about who you are. And sometimes those side hustles, those side jobs give you that validation. Because me being a DJ, even though it's like I'm still kind of new to it, I learned during COVID, but I'm all right. Doing a few, DJing a few gigs and realizing like, okay, this is my vibe. That validation helped me to then engage within that UX researcher in me and be like, you know what I really want to do? I'm really good at facilitating community. And internally, a lot of these product teams have a community problem. So guess what? When you get me as a researcher and a leader, you're getting a community facilitator who can do it in person and virtually.
Yes.
Do you have that now? But you get what I'm saying? So but I needed the other parts of me to help me to be that, to show up in those various ways. And so, it's tough, but hug yourself, set a reminder in your phone for when your brain starts to go crazy, go loose, to be nice to yourself. Work on those side hustles, pull out them clear heels, get to clapping them toes. And then pour back into yourself as a professional so that you can go get the bag that you rightfully deserve.
Awesome. I appreciate you so much. I literally don't think I know. You and Brianna are the most 2 articulate Black women that I know. I'd be like, they be speaking so nice. I just love hearing them talk about stuff. They just sound really good. So I appreciate you taking time to talk to us. I think this is so fruitful, such a great conversation. I'm definitely going to connect with you to see how I could get to be a part of Black's UX Lab. I see some conversions some places.
Come and like the new Design for Impact cohort starts in May. We would love a special guest. Y'all want to pull up? Even Jessica, if you want to, because I think, again, mental health and just speaking around the importance of being okay with yourself, because it starts here so that you can go do those things. But I would love if you guys would come, share some of your expertise and love to the community. Again, our focus right now is on retaining leaders, so giving them the leaders, because Monique, unlike you right now, there are some people who have experience as well, but they're finding that it is very difficult to find a job. And so how do we pour back into our leaders so that they can pour into our newbies? Because if they're gone, then what happens? So, so that's the focus. So if you guys would love, I'd love to have you. It starts
absolutely.
Yes.
All right.
Cool. All right.
I wouldn't, wait,
go ahead.
Let me thank you, Amber.
I was about to say,
candid.
I'm hungry, and that's how I end all these podcasts.
Well, no, I'm going to do it differently. First of all, Amber, thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation. We touched on so many topics, and it all came back to one thing, which was community and support. That's a pillar of mine. That's a pillar, I think, of everybody here, and I appreciate it. The second thing is, instead of ending on Monique's food, we were giving out quotes earlier. So this is a sticker that I have on my computer, and it says, "Perhaps this is the moment for which you were created." Esther 4:14. So that's there's my reminder that that times might be tough, but maybe this was your moment.
Well, thank you all, ladies. I appreciate it, Monique. I'm glad that we are still connected, honey.
I'm gonna come to Kentucky one day. I don't know when, but don't be making that face.
If you can get or you feel free to bring the hubby and the baby. But we also are a big bourbon culture here in Kentucky, and not that saying like if you don't drink, that's cool. But the festivities around it, like
she drinks,
I drink. Okay, well, we have something called Bourbon and Beyond, which is hosted by one of my good friends who is a part of the LGBTQ community, and so that's his way of also bridging like bourbon and inclusivity. And so that's in September.
As we conclude another another episode of the Design Imposter
Girl, let me sign a client real quick.
Self-doubt may be
Yeah,
a universal
I
truth,
gotta
but it should never define your
But
worth
yes,
or
if you
potential.
guys
Embrace
would
the
ever
power
love
of your
to
creativity.
I love to
Trust
host.
in your
I
abilities
love to
and
host
continue
because
creating
Kentucky
fearlessly.
is-
You belong
it's
in
a
this
fun
space,
place.
and
It's
your
not your big
contributions
city,
are
big
invaluable
city,
to
but
your
it's just
community
enough
and
where
those
you got
around you.
space to move,
Thank
to
you for
breathe,
being a
and-
part of the Design
and
Imposter
still
community.
grow.
And
So-
don't forget to subscribe and follow
Wonderful.
us on
All right, we're
Instagram and
ending on
Facebook,
that.
and leave a
Thank
review
you
to help
so
other
much.
imposters
Thank
find
you,
us.
guys.
Until our next
Bye.
episode, keep those headphones ready.